Welcome back to the Wizard Shop, and today we're going to take a look at this really sweet 2012 BMW 3 Series. Let's get started.
Wizard?
Yes?
That's not a BMW.
Well, after we take a look what it takes to do a water pump on this, it might as well be. So no, this is not a BMW. I know it's not. But $1,000 for a water pump. $1,000 to do this water pump. This is crazy. I don't do a whole lot of domestic cars. I did in years past at the shops I've been at. That's all I did. But this is kind of flashbacks. I remember working on these in Acadias and Terrains, Traverses. All of them are junk. Now, I don't mean to say that about this customer's car. But even he was shocked when he found out. He called the dealer. He called another shop. And then he called here. All of us quoted him $1,000 or more to do the water pump. So this is a 2012 Chevrolet Equinox with the 2.4 liter Ecotec. We'll take a look around it, look inside of it, and then we'll tackle what's going on with the water pump. So the styling on these are not going to be really sweet European Volvo styling or something like that. That's your typical domestic SUV. It looks decent, it looks okay. It's not flashy or fancy, but it does the job. This one seems to be in fairly good shape. It's not dented or beat up. On the wheels you can see that the chrome paint or whatever that is starting to peel off. You can see a lot of fading going on. As we move to the back, again, nothing fancy, nothing out of the ordinary. It looks like your typical everyday SUV. It is an Equinox LT and it has, like I said, the 4-cylinder. And on this side we can see up front that the wheel is off because we're working on it, but this side is not dented or caved in either. As you can see, the dash is in pretty good shape. It has simple stereo. This isn't a car that you buy for flashy. This is a utility car. You use it to go around. It looks decent, but it gets you from point A to point B, and it doesn't cost $75,000 to buy it. It has some interesting seats. The fabric is like mesh. And as you can see, the headliner's in good shape all the way back. It's not drooping or scratched or beat up or anything. And the back seats also have the mesh material. Kind of nice looking. I kind of like it. Nice and soft seats too. But otherwise, I mean, there's not a whole lot to speak of in the interior. It's very minimalist in here. It doesn't have 500 buttons like a BMW. But when we take a look under the hood and show you what has to be done just to change the water pump, you will agree with me that it might as well also be a BMW. Let's take a look. So this Equinox has approximately 171,000 miles on it. And you would think buying the 4-cylinder, you're getting a better deal and not having to worry about the V6s and all the timing chain problems that GM has with those. But there is still a huge issue with the water pump. It's a really pain to do this job. The water pump on this vehicle is not driven by a serpentine belt, nor is it electric or anything else. It's driven off of the timing chain. Let's open the hood and take a look. So we do have the shield off the top and some of the duct work and things out of the way. But don't look for the water pump because you won't find it up here, nor on the side of the engine. It's nowhere to be seen. It's on the back of the engine, underneath the exhaust manifold. If you live at home and you do your own work and fix your own cars, this one is going to be hell to do the water pump on. You're going to have to get a creeper and put this thing up on jack stands or borrow a buddy's lift or something along those lines. It is not easy to get to. I'll go ahead and lift this thing up and I'll show you guys what I mean. So in a previous BMW video where I showed you guys why I hate them and we showed a cart full of parts that come off just to do a $3 or $2 seal or whatever it was, it's almost that bad on this vehicle. You would never think to do a water pump you have to take your catalytic converter off. You have to take the shielding off and a whole bunch of duct work and a whole bunch of other things once I show you what we have to do underneath. Junior Mint's doing this job. He's doing a really good job. He's about halfway through it. But so far, this is the parts we have off. And I told Junior Mint, I said, stop. let's stop where you're at. We've got to film this. This is absolute idiocy. This is an American car, and they're putting a water pump on in a place that it might as well be a BMW. Let's take a look. So the vehicle came in, they're having issues when they're at an idle, they don't have any heat, and also they've been to another shop where they said they noticed a leak around the back of the engine. There was a coolant leak, it's coming from the weep hole in the water pump, it has failed. And the impeller inside just spins when it gets warmed up and hot, and it's not moving coolant like it should. That's why they're not getting heat when they're at an idle in this cold weather. Up here we see, there's the water pump, I'm touching it. And there's this coolant pipe that goes to a thermostat housing that also has to come off. But I stopped Junior Mint short of pulling that off because I wanted to film this and show you guys. This right here, this 3-hole flange, is where the catalytic converter was. As you can see, if it was installed right now, you're not going to get your water pump off. So thankfully we have a bungee holding up the exhaust because it had to be unbolted from there. So here's the water pump, just like it's sitting up there. This is how it is when you buy it. There's a drain here. This is where that thermostat pipe goes into. But these 3 bolts bolt to a sprocket on the timing chain. Now you can't just get in there and just unbolt the bolts and pull the water pump off, because then that sprocket will fall and now your timing chain is out of time. Now you're really in trouble. Since when does changing a water pump risk throwing the entire engine out of time and possibly damaging the engine? Just for a water pump. Let me show you a little tool that we're going to have to use on this as well. So here's a little tool. It's Lyle tool number 13800. And let me show you where it goes. So as you can see inside this hole, there's the sprocket I'm talking about, and there's the timing chain going around it. There's 3 bolts there that bolt to the water pump itself. If we were to just remove those 3 bolts unknowingly and just pull the water pump out, this sprocket will actually fall down in the timing case and jump time, and we will be in huge trouble. Big trouble. So that's where this tool comes into place. There's existing holes on the sprocket. You put it in there, put them into the threaded holes, and where these holes were threaded here that used to have a cap over this, you use those to hold the tool into place. Then you can take the bolts off and take your water pump off. This little blue tool is required to do this job, to hold the sprocket in place so it doesn't jump time. It's mandatory to use this. There's no trick of the trade. There's no way to do this without using this tool. It has to be done. So you've seen all the parts we've had to remove just to get down to where we are. This job by the book pays 4 hours. And then there's an additional half an hour that we spent diagnosing and looking this over and figuring out what's wrong, what we need to do, and getting the estimate together and everything. So we're at 4.5 hours at $100 an hour. We're at $450 already, just in labor. Then we've got the water pump cost. Then we've got the seal kit cost. Then we've got antifreeze. Then we got shop supplies. Then we got sales tax. And we start adding all this stuff up, and we're at $1,000. The customer, like I said, was shocked when we told him the cost, but not too shocked, because he said, that's what the other shop said as well. I'm like, well, yeah, that's what it takes to do this job. It's a $1,000 water pump. He's like, well, I trust you guys to do it. I know you guys will do a good job. I was hoping you guys would be a little cheaper, but it is what it is. Let's go ahead and get this done. So we're halfway through it, and we'll get this thing back together and have a happy customer. While we're under here, we'll go ahead and take a look under the car and look at the rest of the car. Right here is the radiator and the condenser. Very easy to inspect. Luckily, it is not leaking or having any issues. Here's our transmission, oil pan, no leaks there, luckily. There's our starter. That one would be easy to do, not too bad. It's kind of messy back here because we've been working on the water pump. But we'll check the brakes while we're here. I'll make sure they're not thin. They're about half gone, but they're still good. Go over to here and check these. Same story on the brakes there. Sway bar link and bushing is good. We'll try not to hit our head on the exhaust as we go back. There's not much else to see here. It's just body floor pan. Here's our charcoal canister, right perfectly where you can hit an animal or something and crack it and break it, and that'll cost you probably $1,500 parts and labor to replace. Now here's all the evap lines. Here's our fuel tank. Everything's looking good there. Take a look at these brakes. These are really thick brakes. Good to go. Shock's not blown out. Sway bar link is good. Brakes are good over here. Shocks are a little bit of seepage going on the shock. We'll let them know about that, but it's probably not enough to really replace it yet. But it is starting to seep. There's a sway bar link there. It's good. Nothing loose. And our exhaust. Luckily, the rest of the car is not as complex as a BMW, but as far as the water pump goes, it might as well be a BMW 3 Series. I say that because, like we talked about in the last video, a 3 Series is in an entry-level price range where a person who is not of very high income level can purchase one. They can scrounge up the cash to buy a 3 Series, and then when they find out every time it breaks it's $1,500 and $2,000 and $3,000, and they're like, I don't have that kind of money. It's like, you shouldn't have bought a BMW then. And it's the same scenario here. I'm actually sad for the customer. It's like, we're spending BMW money on a Chevrolet. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. Let's go ahead and get this thing on the ground. So this car kind of brings to mind that I really don't have any issue with fancy cars, but I've had several instances, especially with BMW 3 Series. I don't know why it's just a 3 Series, but I've had men, women, it doesn't really matter what gender they are, but they come in and bring a vehicle and they're my age, 35, 40. And I get the job done, $1,500 or whatever it costs to fix it, and then they call and say, I'll pick it up this Friday, but my dad will call because I got my dad to pay for this. I'm like, you're a grown person. Why is your dad paying for this? Why aren't you paying for it? Now, I wouldn't even bring this up if it only happened once in the last few years, but this happens 3 or 4 times a year, sometimes more. And Crazy D in the office is like, yeah, he said go ahead, and when we're done, to call this phone number because mommy's going to pay for it. It's like, what? Why did they buy this car then? I don't get it. So there is also the other fraction of why I don't like BMWs. It's just those situations constantly are coming up, and I'm like, you know what? I really don't even like these cars. And this really it was like flashbacks. I was having BMW flashbacks, guys, with this car. So there goes why we have a video about it. So if you're curious what kind of tools we're going to use to fix this car, check my Amazon affiliates link in the description below. We get a small cut, and we really appreciate that. All the tools that I have in the shop are listed for sale there. And if you haven't hit the subscribe button already, I really recommend you do that now. We got many cool projects coming and many more cars coming into the shop.
And we're doing a yacht video next.
Yes, well, we'll do a yacht video for you guys. So you don't want to miss out on that. Hit the subscribe button. Thanks for watching.